Yeah, so my number three film is The Game from 1997. This is a film directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. And the IMDb plot summary is: after a wealthy San Francisco banker is given an opportunity to participate in a mysterious game, his life is turned upside down as he begins to question if it might really be a concealed conspiracy to destroy him. So this is a 90s Fincher, early Fincher thriller that definitely came to mind when we started discussing this topic, because it very much revolves around money and what money can do to a person, how money is a bubble around someone and how it can affect them. Yeah, before I get into more thoughts, just curious if you'd seen this film before.
Oh yeah, I'd seen it before, although I didn't remember much of it. All I remembered was that it was very dark and menacing and what have you. That's all I
Mhm.
remembered. I
Yeah.
think I watched it when I wasn't even in the US, so I had no memory that this was in San Francisco. So
Oh,
it was
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
fun to revisit it. And I actually had to drive downtown the next day, so a part of me was a little bit wary of just driving through parking lots and alleys
Yeah.
in downtown San Francisco. I'm like, oh gosh, is this real? This is a game. What's going to happen to me? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun to revisit it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely like a fun sort of early Fincher when he was a lot more like Hitchcock, very Hitchcock, sort of riffing on him a lot. But yeah, so this movie to me is, again, like Michael Douglas' character is this really rich guy who was born a rich person. His family was rich. I think also came from finance, but he has this bubble around him. Like he's clearly not happy. He's lonely. He's divorced. I think maybe no, divorced once. Lives alone in this giant house. In the beginning of the movie, he's basically just talks to his maid, little
Mhm.
small talk, goes to his office, talks to his assistant a little bit. A lot of the shots are like wide shots of him in these big rooms where it's just showing his isolation and how the money that he has really just makes him lonely. It's his birthday, I think, in the first day of the film, and he
Mhm.
goes home by himself. Reheats a hamburger in the microwave, has a little birthday cupcake, eats in front of the TV, like incredibly alone and isolated. I think that's what money can do to
Mhm.
people that are really well off. And then he meets his brother, who he hadn't seen in a couple years, and then he's introduced to this game. And essentially, it's his birthday present. And what this game does, I think, in the course of this film, is really teaches Michael Douglas what's really important to him and what's important to life, and that money isn't really what makes him happy, because he's clearly unhappy. But I don't think he really realizes that. There's even a scene in the beginning of the film where he meets somebody else who's also done the game, and the guy's like, "Well, I won't really tell you what it is, but I'll just say some Bible quote about like once I was blind and now I can see." And
Mhm.
that's what he leaves him with. And I think that again is a message of the game, and really of life too, that you were blinded before by this money that he had and the security, and security meaning like financial security. And Michael Douglas really didn't understand what was the most important thing to him. And over the course of the film, he has to, after all his money gets taken away by the game, he's on his own. He now has to start relying on other people for help, whether they're strangers. He even goes back to his ex-wife. He starts realizing that he needs other people in his life to succeed. And he's kind of a jerk actually at the beginning of the film too.
Oh
Other
yeah.
He's like mean to waitresses and snippy to people that work for him. He clearly thinks he's better than everyone else, or at least that there's some kind of tier there to people with money and people that don't have it. But over the course of the film, he's forced to learn that a little bit of self-reliance, but also that he needs to rely on other people, and he can't just use his money to solve all these problems. But he goes through everything. The whole movie, he sort of he loses all of his money, all of his access, and he never quits until when he feels that he maybe have lost his brother. And I think that's the point where he realizes his brother, which is his only family that's left, is the most important thing in his life. His love for his brother is actually more important than all of his money, because that's the point in the movie where he decides to give up, even though he's pushed to the extremes throughout the whole thing. So I think really the message of this to me is that money can create a bubble around you, can be insulating, can make you forget actually what's important in life, which is your family and the people that you love, which I
Yeah.
think is true. I do think that not that I've been freakishly wealthy, but I can definitely see from being around people like that have that kind of money, that it does make you lose perspective sometimes on what actually is important, and make you feel isolated and lonely, because you're sort of imagine yourself at the top of some mountain of wealth, and it's lonely up there, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have those familial connections that the game sort of reveals to Michael Douglas on what's important, which I think was why Sean Penn gave him this gift in the first place, because he was trying to
Right.
teach him a lesson. It's sort of like a very kind of It's a Wonderful Life type one of those films, right?
Yeah. Although very different in tonality from It's a Wonderful
Yes,
Life.
no,
Yeah.
definitely, or
Yeah.
like a Christmas Carol, like
Right.
that type
It's
of
yeah.
morality tale, I guess, or
Yeah.
parable.
Definitely. Yeah. It's very interesting First of all, like on your loneliness comment, it's so true. When you watch him eat his TV dinner, essentially that's what it is. Even though it's a gourmet burger that
Right.
Ilsa made with,
Yep.
uh, premium gourmet ingredients bought from a fancy grocery store in San Francisco.
Hmm.
But a TV dinner ate alone in front of a TV, you're not that different from somebody in like sitting in a little hut with a,
Hmm.
phone acting as a TV.
Right.
If you're eating alone, you're suddenly the same person.
Hmm.
Maybe your worries and the sofa you're sitting on or the TV you're watching might be very different, but you're united in that front, in a weird way,
Right. Right.
because you're alone,
Yeah.
yeah, the movie is obviously Fincher, so brilliantly made. You're on your toes. I thought this is a great Michael Douglas performance. Like he's
Yes.
just so good. Like the movie falls apart if you don't have your central lead really carrying the movie the
Hmm.
way he does. And even though Fincher is famous for retakes and picture perfect cutting, I can always tell when he's working with an actor who's of a different caliber that they bring a lot of themselves, and you can see past the technical brilliance, which
Hmm.
always makes a movie better in my mind.
Hmm.
Versus there's some movies which are very technical, I think, of his.
Hmm.
Even though I love them a lot, regardless.
Right.
But the other thing that was kind of funny to me was in this movie is that the game itself is also such a rich person thing,
Hmm.
right? That at some point I found myself feeling annoyed by, oh my gosh, the whole thing is fake. The whole thing is fake. Okay. Why? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. But maybe that is the point. But when you zoom out, I don't know if Michael Douglas is cured. That party was great, but after he paid probably $30 million, which was the bill of the game,
Well, we don't know exactly how much it was. Did
it's
they say?
probably a
It's a
lot. I
lot. Yeah,
mean,
believe me, it's going to be a
it's a
lot for
lot.
what
Like
they
the
did. Yeah.
stunts that were, caused with, like just getting a giant floating
Hmm.
balloon to catch him at the end, that in itself probably cost a lot. So, I mean, it's funny that he's being cured out of his sort of money obsessiveness and the bubble that he's in or what have you. But it's the thing that is, like the medicine itself is also a rich man thing.
Yeah.
Like most
Yeah.
people will not have access to this, which I think is the irony of it all. And so I don't know, a month from this moment, what happens? Like, is he grounded? Is he still talking to his ex-wife? Is he in a better relationship with his brother? I don't think so.
Oh, you don't?
Because
Oh.
I don't think so. Because the problem is the antidote was just so extreme, and it's in a weird way underlines what money can buy you, which may want you to go back to money even more, because then you're like, okay, I'll do game V2. I have that available. I can totally do that.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of viewed it as, because you're right, like the game is very expensive, and clearly, like even when he runs into people that have played it before, they're all super rich, like in the little men's club sort of
The bubble is
lounge
not
area.
broken, really.
Right. Well, they're in the bubble financially, but I do think that, sometimes they say the cure for the disease is sometimes the disease itself, right? Like a vaccine
Or
actually is, you get a little bit of the disease. You buy your way out of this state that he was in, where his eyes were closed and now he can see. And it doesn't mean he's going to give all his money away. It's not like the money changes, but I think it's more of he now knows for him what is important. So he changes, even though his situation's not going to. I mean, he's still going to live in that giant house. He's not like he's going to get back together with his ex-wife or anything like that. Like, she's already
no.
married, but maybe he has a better relationship with him. He's, I think, going to be a lot closer to his brother now, is sort of what I see. And, the conversation he has with that one girl who worked for the game at the
Right.
end of the movie seems like he actually cares about her, as opposed to treating everyone sort of like they're all window dressing in a
Right.
movie that he's the star of. So, yeah, I do think there's some irony in the fact that money caused his problems and money's the only way to solve the problems. But I do think a near-death experience does change people. At least that's the optimistic view that I have of the end of this movie. Like, he did, again, like he only decided to jump off that building when he thought the one thing in his life he actually surprisingly did care about was actually gone. Like, not the money. He even gave away his dad's watch. There was some sentimental thing. Gave that away. He was okay with doing that. Once his brother he thought was gone, okay, well now, I have nothing left. There's nothing for me.
Yeah.
So I think that is a
Although
lesson
it
that
is
he will.
accumulation, I think. Like it's not a single event, even though that might have literally pushed him off the ledge.
Mm-hmm.
but it's a accumulation of everything that's been happening up to
True.
that point that now
That's
I
true.
have nothing. I have no
Right.
money, no
Right.
status,
Right.
and I've lost my only family member.
Mhm.
And we didn't mention he has this looming, haunting ghost of his dad
Yes. Yes.
all through. So,
Hmm.
that's also playing a part.
No, right. Who committed suicide?
Right.
It was probably you're sort of assuming he also wasn't happy with the fact he was
Yeah.
lonely. He had all the money too and had the same problems that Michael Douglas had. So
Yeah.
Sean Penn, his brother, giving him this gift did potentially maybe have saved his life. Like maybe he would have actually jumped off a bridge anyway,
Mhm.
because he was this lonely. So yeah, like I think there's an interesting parable in this, and again, just really speaks to how I think that money does change people and really help make clear what the priorities, even if you have money, your priorities should be around your family and just people that you love and other human connections, similar to Love is Strange, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the human connections of what got them through it. For Michael Douglas, he needed to realize that. And
Yeah.
again, I think the movie's really fun, and you just reminding me of these 90s thrillers, going back and watching this,
Yeah.
where you don't know, you're going along the movie with Michael Douglas, the plot's never ahead, you're never ahead of him in the plot.
Right.
You're right there with him until the very end. So it's like, what's going to happen? And there's all those twists and turns, which I find very like 90s for some reason. I
Oh
attribute
yeah.
that a lot. Like now they would have telegraphed something where the audience has to be smarter than Michael Douglas, so we can kind of point and laugh at him. Oh, this is all this, and we know this now, so we can feel superior. Whereas you're actually right in there with him the whole time, not knowing like, is this real? Wait, that's fake, but is this real? That was just really fun and very well executed for Fincher during his little Hitchcock phase with this in Panic Room. I thought was a
Yeah.
fun time in his filmography.
No, I agree, and I love that this is back in the day when you could get A-list stars and a big
Mm-hmm.
budget to make a movie like this, which is just a thriller. It doesn't really have, I mean, I guess it does have a pretty strong message, but it's still not making any grand
No.
statements about, saving humanity or a planet got bombed or
Right.
any of that. Like it's very much a contained story, but at this, done really well at a high level, which I miss.
Yeah.
We as a culture and as a movie industry are too cynical now, I guess, to kind of make something like this that's contained and well made and give it the budget it needs.
Right, or just the talent. Like I think this
Yeah.
movie could easily be made today. It just would be
Yeah.
like
You will
direct to
not get
Netflix.
A-list
You wouldn't get
people.
A-list talent behind the
No.
camera, in front of the camera. It would just be, a fun movie that I'd watch and forget it after, a day after
It'll
watching it.
just be bad,
Yeah,
mostly.
probably. Or just forgettable. Unlike this movie, which I saw on VHS like soon after it came out. I didn't see it in theaters, so I was
Yeah.
too young at the time.
Same.
But I remember watching it on VHS and just being enthralled with it. So yeah, it's kind of sad they don't make movies like this anymore, but at least the game exists to teach
Yeah.
us these lessons.
Really good. But I will say that I don't know if he gets cured because
Okay.
I believe in everything you said, but I would just add to that when you have this much money, I think it's just very difficult
Mm-hmm.
to keep clear sight of what truly matters. Not saying it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put in a lot of effort to sustain that, and you need the right kind of people around you to remind you and make you stay grounded. People
Mm-hmm.
have done it. I mean, it seems like it. I mean, I don't know such people in real
Yeah,
life,
I
but
don't either. Yeah.
from the outside, like if you look at some really successful actors and actresses who've managed to maintain a family life and
Mm-hmm.
success, and you don't read tabloid bad stories about them and going into all sorts of crazy things. So it seems like some people have figured it out, but it seems very difficult to me. I mean, how do you sustain this?
Yeah, well, this sounds like you would ask for a refund because the game is supposed to cure him, and you would go
You're
back.
you.
You'd be Sean Penn and go back and be like, "Hey guys, like I need a refund. Like he's
I want a
still
refund.
his next
Exactly.
birthday, he's still eating that cupcake alone. So I want my money back."
I'm like, I'm angry, bruised, and I want my money back.
Okay, well, I guess I'll have to return your birthday gift for next year. I got you the game, and clearly you don't want it, so I'll take it back. I'll get you something else.
Sounds good.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.